early in the 21st century, the Tyrell Corporation advanced robot evolution into the Nexus phase, a being virtually identical to a human known as a replicant. The Nexus 6 replicants were superior in strength and agility, and at least in intelligence, to the genetic engineers who created them. Replicants were used off-world as slave labor in the hazardous exploration and colonization of other planets. After a bloody mutiny by a Nexus 6 combat team in an off-world colony, replicants were declared illegal on Earth under penalty of death. Special police squads, Blade Runner units, had orders to shoot to kill upon detection any trespassing replicant. This was not called execution, it was called retirement. This is the backstory that viewers are provided with in the very beginning of Ridley Scott's 1982 neo-noir film Blade Runner, adapted from Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. The film takes place in a dystopian Los Angeles in the far-off year of 2019, where the once bright and colorful city is now perpetually shrouded in dark storming rain clouds, lit only by the artificial light of the many towering buildings populating the area. Amid this dehumanizing atmosphere sits ex-Blade Runner Rick Deckard, the protagonist of the film played by Harrison Ford, who was promptly picked up by the police. The police department pulls Deckard out of retirement to task him with hunting down a group of rogue replicants, which he accepts. Blade Runner obscures the boundary between man and machine through the concept of replicants and the questionable morals that come along with them. This toil between the two entities is repeatedly highlighted throughout the film in the form of Rick Deckard's bounty hunting mission, with his trials and character growth ultimately unraveling the message of how society must forego its prejudice against others so that life and love can triumph. The earliest signs of Deckard's shift away from his prejudice towards replicants comes about once he hunts down his first target, female replicant Zora Salome. At this point earlier on in the film, his view of replicants is callous.
Replicants are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or a hazard. If they're a benefit, it's not my problem.
Despite exhibiting sentience and being almost identical to humans physically, Deckard's perception of replicants is subhuman, as though they are ordeals rather than individuals with identities. When he locates Zora in her changing room and attempts to interrogate her, she realizes his murderous intentions, attacks him, and flees in pursuit of survival. The two of them enter a chase sequence through the bustling LA streets. Throughout this, Zora's frantic movements and paranoid behavior can be seen vividly, as can Deckard's cold, predatory facial expression as he scans the area for her. In this moment, it is as if the roles of replicant and living being are reversed between Zora, whose frenzied state of fight or flight reflects that of a living creature facing danger, and Deckard, whose stern surveillance of the area is mechanical, reminiscent of a security camera. This reversal of roles not only outlines the irony of Deckard's opinions regarding replicants, but also his and the rest of humanity's hypocrisy in harboring such viewpoints. Once the opportunity to finish the job reveals itself to Deckard, he fires his gun and hits Zora, who stumbles to the ground, gets up, and continues to run. After the second shot, she falls yet again and perishes. All the while, she barrels through a total of 5 sheets of glass before she meets her end. Deckard's facial expression shifts from its previously emotionless state to one of bafflement, for the corpse of a soulless machine he needed to hunt down and retire now lies before him indistinguishable from the corpse of a human that was murdered. The grief on Deckard's face is the first sign of his prejudice towards replicants being challenged, and the 5 panes of glass being shattered by Zora symbolize just how fortified Deckard's mental barriers were, and furthermore, how Zora's graphic death was able to penetrate those barriers and allow Deckard to view her as more than a utility. Shortly after his confrontation with Zora, Deckard is ambushed by another replicant, Leon Kowalski, who witnessed him kill her moments ago. Kowalski subjects Deckard to a brutal beating while venting his frustrations about being a replicant.
Painful live in fear, isn't it? Nothing is worse than having an itch you can never scratch.
As Kowalski is about to execute Deckard, he is shot in the head and killed by Rachel, the replicant Deckard had acquainted with earlier when he visited the Tyrell Corporation's headquarters. The two of them go back to Deckard's apartment to rest after the gruesome events that transpired. Still bloody from his altercation with Kowalski, Deckard goes to his sink to cleanse his wounds. He submerges his entire face underwater during this process, which on top of physically cleaning him, represents a turning point in his character arc. In mythology all over the world, water is symbolic of change, transformation, and rebirth, meaning Deckard inundating his head, and moreover his mind, marks the point in which he begins to deviate from the prejudice he harbors for replicants. This is seen moments later when he makes out with Rachel against her will, which prompts her to walk swiftly to the exit to Deckard's apartment in an attempt to leave. Deckard, now visibly indignant, trails after her and prevents her from opening the door so that he can continue to make love to her. Deckard, who had prior thought of replicants as being like any other machine, now finds himself persistently making love to one. He also commands Rachel to reciprocate those feelings, testing her humanity through partaking in the most primal, soul-driven act any human can do. Deckard's mixture of violent and gentle actions vividly outlines his inner toil between his preconceived prejudice and his passionate feelings of love. This exchange serves as a test for both Deckard and Rachel, and marks a pivotal change in both their relationship and their character trajectories. Towards the end of the film, Deckard finds himself up against one last replicant, the cunning and powerful Roy Batty, whose own character development brought upon the final step in Deckard's growth. Both characters enter this fight as murderers, with Deckard having killed 2 replicants, Zora Salome and Pris Stratton, and Roy having killed 2 humans, Eldon Tyrell and J.F. Sebastian, leaving the audience with 2 morally gray murderers instead of a hero and a villain. This dilemma is acknowledged by Roy as he and Deckard's battle begins.
I thought you were supposed to be good. Aren't you the good man?
Their brawl shifts in the favor of Roy, so much so that a majority of it becomes Deckard taking the role of prey while Roy prowls around the building howling like a wolf. This dynamic puts Deckard in a position that leaves him hiding and cowering in fear of his life, just as the replicants felt being hunted by Deckard. Roy, recognizing his limited lifespan is nearing its end as indicated by his hand clenching against his will, knows that he must wrap up this quarrel before his imminent death. Towards the end of the chase, Roy passes through a room of white doves and emerges from it with one in his hand. In a myriad of cultures and literature, these birds are a symbol of freedom, forgiveness, and love. Finding those doves struck Roy with the realization of how he must end his quickly fleeting life with a gesture of love, which he does when he saves Deckard from plummeting to his death. In his last moments, Roy voices to Deckard his last words.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
Upon finishing his speech, Roy passes on, which releases the dove from his hand into the sky in the process. The dove's departure reflects the liberation Roy experienced in his death, for it freed him physically from his life of fear and anguish as a replicant, and emotionally through confiding in Deckard his discovery of how all life should be cherished. Through showing Deckard mercy and saving his life, Roy ensured that he would live on in Deckard's memories instead of being completely lost like tears in rain. Deckard's colleague in the police force, Gaff, arrives at the scene of where Roy died and Deckard now sits, and commemorates Deckard for his hard work. Knowing of the relationship Deckard and Rachel share, Gaff leaves him with this final message.
It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
Gaff acknowledges the dehumanization of society by questioning if anybody truly lives, which verbalizes to Deckard Roy's message of loving and appreciating the life around them instead of expressing hatred towards other beings, replicants, for being different and allowing that malice to manifest itself as murderous prejudice. Gaff also exercises this idea by going against the police department's orders to retire Rachel out of sympathy for her and Deckard and giving them time to escape in pursuit of a better life, allowing the film to end on a hopeful note for its emotionally developed protagonist. Rick Deckard's undertaking of eliminating the rogue replicants showcases the aversion fostered by humans towards replicants, with the film utilizing Deckard's character arc as a means of relaying the film's theme. At the start, Deckard possessed an unyielding prejudice against replicants, which showed its first signs of change when he inflicted and watched Zor's violent death with a look of dread on his face. Soon after, he found himself having intense feelings of love for Rachel, and he expressed those passionate feelings of affection entangled with his deep-seated raging prejudice as he forcefully made love to her. As the film wrapped up, Deckard and Roy had their fight, which ended with Roy saving Deckard's life and bestowing onto him the idea that love, empathy, and an appreciation for all life should conquer the widespread hatred of replicants so that all can live their life free from the shackles of fear. Despite this film taking place in a futuristic sci-fi setting, the lesson it teaches of forsaking the prejudice individuals towards one another is timeless, and there is quite a ways to go before the wisdom Deckard learned can be realized by everyone in the real world.